Welcome to True Health Tuesday, and the truth will set you free. The truth today in our environment's interesting. Okay, so we're going to talk about the thyroid and adrenal gland because we're getting a lot of people. I know nobody in this room is stressed, but there is a lot of stress out there, particularly if you have one of those boxes that is programming you to respond to the environment and your neighbors with abject fear. Okay, wait, you guys aren't masked. Does that mean you're all breathing? Oh my gosh. Okay, good. Okay, so tyrants are not the problem. So you can blame anyone you want. You can say, look, somebody voted them in there. Okay, it's the people obeying it. So the only reason our world is insane, like the only reason the people in Australia are in lockdown and quarantine camps, is not because of the people or the tyrants. They're going along with it. So it's eventually this will continue to go on until we stop this stuff. So in the censored information, because it is divided up, we're going to talk about the new hope, because we are seeing that the legislative or the judicial branch is actually coming back alive. Okay, so we are possibly going to get some of our Constitution back, which keeps government in check. Now, all this will be placed on the Dr. BVIP site. Thank you so much for everybody, the support in there, and just keep doing it. We're looking to try and find our own server. Over the next week and a half, we're going to have to eliminate about 50 of our videos that were put up in 2008, 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15, because they're on certain subject matter that you can't talk about now. We could call it the Voldemort injection. Okay, yeah, but at least it'll be all put on the Dr. BVIP and on Odyssey as well. The extreme health. I honest to God, I never thought I'd ever have to say, yes, we have to be censored, otherwise we'll be kicked off. Okay, this is America, right? Okay. So Extreme Health Academy, absolutely amazing group. If you can, join them. But also, I'm going to be working with them in the next week from now. We're going to do a seminar, a 2.5-hour webinar to answer questions. And these are groups of people around the world, and it's really neat to connect with people. Okay, adaptations. Okay, when somebody comes in and says, oh, I have a thyroid issue. Oh, I have adrenal fatigue. Is the thyroid really the problem? Or is it an adaptation? And 100% of the time, because you cannot have a thyroid in a glass jar functioning on its own. The thyroid is intimately connected to the hypothalamus, the pituitary, the adrenal glands, the entire system. Okay, it can't function. Like, what's the most important organ in the body? Yeah, heart can't work without the lungs. Okay, another one. Come on. Let's play here. Lung can't work without the kidneys. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So when you look at this stuff, every part is working in conjunction. Now, there are some parts you can live with if you get them taken out. Okay. And some parts can be toxic. But when we look at this, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, type 2 diabetes, none of these are diseases. They're adaptations to stress. Now, 100% of time, that's the factor. So when somebody comes in saying, look, I got a low functioning or a high functioning thyroid or adrenal fatigue, I'll say, no, your body is responding correctly based on the stimuli. And how do you check for the stress level? How do you check for that stimuli? Number one, if somebody comes in and they say, God, doc, I'm exhausted, what are you going to ask? I'm talking not a doctor's perspective, because you were trained, incorrectly. Okay. Do you have kids? Oh, that's a good one. Okay. What about, how are you sleeping? No shit. I mean, if you come in the room and the light's off, you're gonna call the power company or check the light switch. So if you have fatigue, how are you sleeping? So interrupted sleep patterns means that there is some kind of chronic stress. Bowel frequency is a really good one. So what we're doing, and there's only 3 stressors. There's physical stress, chemical stress, and emotional stress. You identify the physical stress through heart rate variability, thermography, stress x-rays to see what the physical stressors are. Because we're going to learn how that hypothalamus or how the thyroid works. Chemical stressors, the blood analysis, dark field microscopy, Look at pink skin. So if you see somebody with pink hues of skin and you touch it and it turns white, that means that there's excess histamine, some kind of tissue damage somewhere. Emotional stress. Okay, I know guys don't have emotions. Okay, but we're talking high blood pressure, anxiety, stress. All of those things can be the end result of an emotional stress or your perception. Now, there's ways to correct this. You can correct the physical, chemical, emotional stress. I do not recommend that you address the adaptation. Does that make sense? Now, if you look at our world, it is a fear-based world. Blew my mind last year when they're suggesting everything that will cause social isolation, interruption in food supply, interruption in social connectivity, and interruption in oxygen to your brain. And this was in response to something to keep you healthy. No, seriously, okay? Can you imagine 50 years from now? They're going to, wow, you guys are really sharp there. Okay, so we have a mentally unstable world. That's obvious. People are going along with this. And it's the people going along with it that are the problem. We have an extremely unhealthy population, higher disease rates, toxic food. I mean, think of this. If you had a herd of water buffalo that had a thyroid disorder, would you give them thyroid medication? No, doc, even you wouldn't. Okay. You'd want to find out what they're eating, right? Because you get a herd of water buffalo that have been in a harmony for a while, that's had an ecosystem that's self-sufficient for thousands of years, and they start to negatively affect it. You've got to look at the deficiency or toxicity. That's just common sense. Now, this is huge. Look at your actions now. We did not inherit this world from our ancestors. We borrow it. We're borrowing it from our kids. So this means that we've got to look at the land, the soil, how we're working our world. Okay? Because if you think that this is good for their mental and emotional development, okay, you are completely programmed. Okay? Now, this is before, because I know before 2020, we actually had different subject matter other than the Voldemort virus. Okay? Before 2020, we were looking at the health of our kids, and the health of our kids is horrible. 54% got a chronic illness or injury. Currently, life expectancy is shortening, and our children will not live older than their parents. Top military leaders report 7 out of 10. What is that? 7 out of 10? 70% of 17 to 24-year-olds are unfit to serve in the U.S. military because of obesity, asthma, hearing, sight problems, mental illness. 70%. Does that mean that we have a problem with readiness? Yes, this was before the insanity. Okay? Now, and you can look at these statistics, but if this was any kind of animal species on the planet, okay, and I'm just putting this first couple of slides up to make you realize that it is not normal to have a pediatric oncologist. It is not normal to have a pediatric physical therapy or speech therapy. This is not normal. Okay, this is brand new to this last couple of generations. Attention deficit disorder, asthma, allergies. This is all in exponential form. Okay, so understand we're in a stress state. Now, when you're in a stress state, you have an automatic nervous system. One part keeps you alive under stress, and that's the sympathetic or fight or flight. That's what I'm experiencing right now. Stress. Okay, the other part is rest, digest, and repair, but your body works. You need this in harmony. It's not one good, one bad. You need this to adapt. If you had only the parasympathetic, you wouldn't want to get out of bed. Okay? If you had only the sympathetic, you'd be misdiagnosed with high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, inflammatory bowel disease, and you would be burnt out. Okay? So we need a balance of this automatic nervous system. Now, when you're in a sympathetic dominant state, you're running away from danger. So this means blood supply goes from the gut, the torso, to the arms and legs. This means digestive tract is shut down, immune system is weakened, and you have a balance between the thyroid and adrenal glands. So the adrenal glands are going to be firing off epinephrine, norepinephrine, or adrenaline. Okay, they're going to fire off cortisol, the stress hormones, and the thyroid is going to be suppressed because the thyroid is really metabolically expensive. Now, so what governs this? Well, what governs this is the nervous system. Okay, so you've got this nervous system, this fight or flight, sympathetic and parasympathetic, telling the body to produce the appropriate hormones. Okay, now what produces this? It's called the Hpa axis. Now, you've got the nervous system and the endocrine system, and this is how your body communicates. So you've got the electrical and the chemical signals. Now, the electrical signals are coming up from the spine and nervous system. Now, the hypothalamus is the only structure you got that's got 1 foot in the nervous system, 1 foot in the endocrine system. So they get massive sensory input from the body in order to change the hormones so that you could adapt. Does that make sense? Okay, so now the hypothalamus is hugely important. Hypothalamus produces thyroid-releasing hormone. Now, how does it do it? It gets its information from the environment. So if you are feeding yourself anxiety, stress, and depression because you're watching the ticker tape on the death results or the case results or the new variants out there because you're just damn panicked, okay? Your stress response is going to be sending to that hypothalamus to suppress thyroid function and elevate cortisol or adrenal function. Now, thyroid releasing hormone talks to the pituitary. The pituitary releases thyroid stimulating hormone. And so that's going to cause the thyroid to start to produce T3, T4, calcitonin. I mean, all the stuff that the thyroid is supposed to produce. Okay, but it's also when the thyroid's up, the adrenal glands are down. When the adrenal glands are up, the thyroid's down. So when you're looking at this, and if you've been diagnosed, and this is the critical thing, people who come in and say, well, I've been fatigued and I got hair loss. Where do you go? The endocrinologist. What's he going to do? Wow, you have a high TSH, so that means the pituitary screaming down to the thyroid to produce it. You've got a low T3, T4, and so, wow, you have a low functioning thyroid. Let me give you a drug to balance this out. Now, do you think the drug is exactly the duplicate of what your own thyroid produces? It's bioidentical. Oh my God, you had the advertisement. So it's not 100% bioavailable and it's not identical. Okay, we're going to get into that. But you have to look at the stress as the underlying factor. Nobody has a malfunctioning thyroid. And what do they say? It's just, we don't know. But we know if we give you this levothyroxine that you're going to feel better. Okay? Now, remember, hypothalamus gets its information from the spine. Do you see any lateral or structural deviations in this person standing up? Okay, if not, get some friggin' glasses. Okay, because this person has had high blood pressure. Is high blood pressure disease or an adaptation? Adaptation for 20 friggin' years. 20 years. Why? Because of old trauma. Okay, now, what's the number one cause of high blood pressure? Not in this group, this is an educated group. I'm talking the medical world. What do they say the leading cause of high blood pressure is? Idiopathic. Nope, they won't even say stress. It's idiopathic. We just don't know. It's God's will. Runs in your family. No, you got to look at this as an intelligent adaptation by the body. Now, and we look at the medical reasoning behind this. Okay, so low functioning thyroid, we're not going to talk about Graves' disease or high functioning. We're just going to look roughly at this because that's another autoimmune condition which really goes under our autoimmune disease factors, which it doesn't even exist. It's really the body adapting to toxicity and deficiency. But let's just look at hypothyroidism. Leading cause of hypothyroidism is Hashimoto's thyroiditis. What's the cause of Hashimoto's thyroiditis? Because remember, you're going in to talk to somebody that this is not your field. Okay, it's like me taking my car to a transmission mechanic. If he says, yeah, your blinker fluid's out, I'll go, damn, I didn't know the blinkers had fluid. Okay, no, blinkers don't have fluid. Okay, this is like an old joke from teenagers. Okay, so I wouldn't know if he told me anything. I'd just have to go along with it. And so this, when they say, yes, Hashimoto's thyroiditis is the leading cause of thyroid disorders, What's the cause of Hashimoto's thyroiditis? If you keep asking the freaking question because your life depends on the quality of questions you ask, what are they going to say? We just don't know. Okay, so let's change this. For one, let's look at thyroxine, number one thing that they give you. Okay, for one, thyroid gland normally produces T3 and will decrease its production in the presence of thyroxine. So wait a second. I thought that this was one of those bioidentical things, okay, that the endocrinologist really knew what the heck was going on. Now, this isn't exactly what the T3 that you produce or T4 that you produce, okay? It's similar, but some of your structures, like some of the sensors in the spine, and going to tell the hypothalamus that you already have a good level, so it's going to decrease production. Thyroxine often acts as an anti-hormone, especially in women. Interesting. So some areas are going to be affected positively, some negatively. Thyroxine used in hypothyroid cases can suppress oxidative metabolism. Oxidative metabolism is how you build up and tear down tissue. Now, just think of this, because I want you to start looking at the body as intelligent. And I know, in the brainwashing that we're getting, okay, you're not going to be really, this is going to be a whole new subject. Okay, T3, T4, okay, they regulate metabolism. T4 is roughly a 20-to-1 ratio, but T3 is the super active one. It's active really, really like 4 times the amount. Now, T4 is converted to T3 in the liver, intestines, kidneys, and lungs. Now, what if you had a fatty liver disorder because you were taking a lot of canola oil, polyunsaturated fats? What if you were taking a lot of high fructose corn syrup, which causes fatty liver? Would you have healthy liver function or poor liver function? Knowing that the liver has to process all of the stress hormones in the body. And in fact, stress hormones, adrenaline and cortisol, secreted by the adrenal glands, don't have an off button. They go through the blood, they get to the spleen passes off those old stress hormones and blood cells that are older than 120 days. And so you get this bile in there that's produced from the red blood cells going to the gallbladder that stores and concentrates this stuff. And when you look at gallstones, they're made of concentrated stress hormones. It's a trip. So could you have a liver disorder causing the conversion to be lower? Yeah. Could you have a blood disorder, knowing that converts in the kidneys too? Yeah, absolutely. Could you have some chronic stressor, such as protein deficiency, like long-term stomach acid deficiency, that causes a clumping or a clotting together of the blood, causing decreased lung function? Absolutely. So when people are looking at this conversion and they're not looking at the lungs, the heart, the liver, the kidneys, okay, can you see that that's poor doctoring? Okay, but luckily the government's going to take that away from everyone, so they'll just have one size fits all, and the doctors will get in trouble for actually being a doctor. So wait a second, look at this. So dietary selenium is essential for the production. Could you have a nutrient deficiency that people aren't taking those Brazil nuts or having selenium deficiency? Would that make sense? Absolutely. Causes nutrient deficiencies, yeah, selenium. Heavy metal exposure. What would heavy metals do? That would damage the kidneys. It could damage the liver. It could damage the lungs. Polyunsaturated fats. What does the polyunsaturated fats do? It can damage the liver. It can thicken the blood. Oh my God, this makes so much sense, doesn't it? So really, when you're looking at the body's response, it is intelligent. If you got a doctor that says, it just runs in your family. Really, it never ran in your great grandma. Okay. So we've got the stress. Okay. So what I'm telling you now is the thyroid is not the issue. The thyroid is the canary in the coal mine. You've got physical, chemical, emotional stress. All of a sudden, your thyroid appears low. What's the cause of it? You got to find the source of it. Stress hormones are released. So this means adrenaline and cortisol. Okay. You got a pain reliever and anti-inflammatory. Now, the thyroid is going to be suppressed under that function. Now, what happens if you, your normal response, intelligent response, is the thyroid's decreased, digestion is decreased, serotonin's decreased. So what do you get? You get slow motility of the bowel. okay? You could have ultra fast motility of the bowel, but generally it's slow, like one bowel movement a day, one if you're lucky, or, like I hear a lot of my patients, well, I used to have one every other day, but now I take a bunch of herbs. Okay, look, 2 to 3 bowel movements a day is normal. Okay, serotonin level, anxiety, stress, okay, loss of hair. That means that you're not getting the amino acids from the foods you're getting. So what do? You go to a doctor that's not a real doctor, okay? They're trained in pharmaceutical education. So they're trained in memorize and regurgitate, memorize and regurgitate. That's why when you ask them tough questions like, gee, doc, what does this come from? Okay, they haven't a clue. They'll say, oh, genetics, even though genetics haven't changed in around 60,000 years. Then what will they give you for sleep issues? Are they going to give you melatonin, or are they going to look for the physical, chemical, emotional stress? Are they going to give you a sleep drug that causes all sorts of different problems? Are they going to give an antidepressant? Okay, knowing that serotonin is produced in the gut, that also symmetrical stimulation of the body can stimulate the cerebellum, which controls the frontal lobe, and that's where anxiety is. Are they going to look for the causative factor or give you an antidepressant, a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, that actually causes, okay, anxiety, stress, and depression? I mean, mind-blowing. I'm telling you, 50 years from now, although, I was just reading a book, The Third Reich in Power, 1933 to 39, and I thought, wow, we had really progressed beyond that era. No, we haven't. So maybe 100 years from now, people will look back and say, my God, you guys were nuts. Okay, cortisol, belly, seat, and thigh weight distribution, belly, seat, and thigh weight distribution. When you see that, you know that there is stress. Okay, this is when you're on 1,000 calories a day and you're not losing weight. Because long-term stress, your body can't break down the nutrients. You're not going to metabolize the protein, the fats, and the carbohydrates. And your body is super efficient, so it's going to store it in this really, really good, efficient model called fat. Okay, and that is chronic stress. Now, cortisol, amazing hormone produced by the adrenal glands. And you figure your adrenal glands produce every mineralocorticosteroid, glucocorticosteroid, and sex hormone. And they utilize cholesterol as the precursor, as the building product of it. Now, cortisol, short-term levels, balances blood sugar, helps with breaking down the nutrients, the fatty proteins, fats, protein, carbohydrates. Immune system response is that important, anti-inflammatory, helps regulate blood pressure, heart, blood vessel tone. I mean, it's amazing. Under chronic activation, okay, you're in deep trouble. Chronic activation, impaired cognitive performance. Do we have an epidemic of Alzheimer's and anxiety? Do we have an epidemic of brain fog? Absolutely. Thyroid, blood sugar imbalances. How about type 2 diabetes? Is that epidemic as well? Bone density. Ever hear of osteoporosis or osteopenia? Sleep disruption. Can you imagine, picture any chronic illness, anyone, and I'm talking fibromyalgia, cancer, anything. Can you imagine going over to your friend that's got that stupid diagnosis, see him in the morning and they say, God, I slept great? No, never. Okay? Sleep disturbances. Sleep is when your body regenerates. Okay? It's foolishness to have somebody diagnosed with a low functioning thyroid and you're not looking at the physical, chemical, emotional stress. Elevations in blood pressure, I mean, everything. So we got two things basic. Okay, what raises cortisol will lower the thyroid. What helps the thyroid will lower cortisol. Okay, am I going too fast? No, I know. Why they don't understand, I don't friggin' know. So what raises cortisol is low functioning thyroid. Okay, and we're going to cover what that is. Inflammation, stress, tissue damage, vaccines, and toxic food. Okay, that's what causes cortisol because you're talking an inflammatory action. What lowers cortisol? Gee, healthy thyroid function, plant-based diet, vegetables, organic vegetables, and healthy water. It can't be that simple. Okay, what helps the thyroid? Let's see this. Healthy gut function. So that means good bacteria. That means reducing the physical, chemical, emotional stress so your parasympathetic is in healthy balance so your body gets good digestion. Low levels of cortisol, so that means low inflammatory or stress responses. Healthy food, healthy water, and low stress. That's amazing. What lowers thyroid function? Estrogen. Has anyone ever heard of birth control pills? Okay, just checking. Okay, can that lead to a low functioning thyroid? Yes or yes? High cortisol, liver toxicity, fluoride. Has anyone ever heard of fluoride in toothpaste? What about in water? What about in sunny delight? Okay. Pesticides, stress. Pesticides are estrogen based. Most of them, stress, toxic food. I mean, it seems so simple that your body can think of this. If you've got high levels of liver toxicity, high fructose corn syrup, giving you fatty liver, you got the fluoride, you got the pesticides, and you're taking birth control. So the adrenals are the pharmacy of the body. And think of the brilliance of this. I mean, it's so cool to think you've got a kidney the size of your fist, and you got two of them, okay, generally. And 6 quarts of blood got to be filtered through there every 20 minutes. And you want to get your hormones into that bloodstream as quick as possible, based immediately on response, immediately, okay? So what do? You put a pharmacy right on top of that blood filter. And it's above the renal gland, okay, or the kidney, so we call it adrenal. I know, cool, isn't it? I thought it was cool. Anyway, okay, so it means above the renal gland, okay? Riñones. Okay, so now the adrenals produce estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. They fight cancer. They produce interferon, vital for the immune system. All of this in this little tiny gland. It's amazing. Now, and this was out of the Huffington Post, 2017. 60 million American women have thyroid problems, or Americans, mostly women. Anxiety, achiness, muscle fatigue, weight fluctuations, hair loss, carpal tunnel syndrome, temperature sensitivity, constipation, and others. Now, let's read that backwards. Okay, people that have a low functioning thyroid are going to have chronic stress, which will cause, let's go from the bottom up, slow gastric motility or constipation, because that means they're in a sympathetic dominant state. Temperature sensitivity, that means that they're not going to be able to adapt to the environment because their core temperature is decreased because the blood supply has gone to the arms and legs. Carpal tunnel syndrome, that is a double crush injury beginning in the neck, leading to pain in the wrist, okay, and a muscle imbalance of the wrist, causing incredible pain. What does pain do? Increase the sympathetics. Weight fluctuations, no, that's not weight fluctuations. That's cortisol-mediated metabolic state, belly, seat, and thighs. Fatigue, no kidding. They're in a chronic state of stress. Are they sleeping good, or do they have poor sleep disturbances or sleep disturbances? Muscle weakness, achiness, no kidding. When you look at every joint in your body is hydraulic, and when you're under stress, the blood starts to clump together. That means every joint in the body is going to be sore. It's going to be achy because they're going to be desiccating out. Anxiety and irritability. Hell yeah. You've gone to 5 different doctors, and they keep telling you, well, we don't know why your thyroid is working okay, but you just have this miserable stuff going on everywhere. We're going to give you non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, which actually weaken your body's immune system response, but you'll feel somewhat more comfortable. Fluoride used to be a medical intervention for a hyperthyroid. That means that they used to give it to you. Now, the problem with this, okay, and goiter from hypothyroidism or ectothyroid, the problem is Wheaties, Coca-Cola, Snapple, Hansen soda, light beer, okay, has fluoride in it. Why? Because it's manufactured with water that has fluoride put in it. Now, fluoride has also been used in a lot of prison camps because that has a calming effect on the inmates. Has no bearing in Australia or America right now. I just thought I'd blow out a little factoid there. So now in high school, you had that periodic table of elements. Okay, in the bottom corner was iodine, fluorine, chlorine, and bromine. Okay, so they're all halides. Now, if you're iodine deficient, your body's going to start to utilize anything that's similar. Okay, they even had the goiter belt. the goiter belt, it was like around the Great Lakes, because their salt up there didn't have any iodine in it. Now you need iodine, but you need iodine even more if, what's that nuclear plant that's still spewing massive amounts of radiation? And I know you said that we were all Fukushima'd. Oh, it's Fukushima. That's right. Okay, thanks. Okay, so we're getting radioactive iodine on the West Coast floating down everywhere. If you don't have regular iodine, okay, this can negatively affect you. Okay, it's just smart to take a proactive approach. But also, if you know that fluoride's in the water, you're washing with chlorine, you're getting chlorine if you're taking just almost anything, and the bread, unless it's 100% organic, typically has bromine in it. So this is where a lot of thyroid nodules are coming from, because the body's trying to utilize something that's close, but it can't. So it walls it off. And this is the key thing when you're looking at tumors, fibroids, cysts, all of that. Do those things form out of magic, or did the body actually form it to wall off a toxin? Is that an adaptive response? 100% adaptive. Now, leaky gut. Okay, leaky gut, what's that going to be? Does that mean good tissue integrity or poor tissue integrity? Poor tissue integrity. Now, that means that there's going to be an inflammatory process in there. Inflammation creates cortisol, because that's got to decrease that inflammation. And when cortisol is up, then the thyroid function is going to be down. But it's interesting because the causes of leaky gut, GMOs. So does that mean genetically modified organisms that actually are sprayed with glyphosate, which is a mineral chelator and a natural antibiotic, can damage the intestinal tract, decreasing thyroid function? Yes or yes? Okay, so this is like, damn, that makes a hell of a lot of sense. Soy. We're looking at the programming of the world. Who's the biggest farmer? You know, I was thinking it was Eddie Albert, but that was Green Acres. No, I actually watched that. Yeah, it's crazy. I thought it was good too. No, it's that other billionaire. Okay, Monsatan used to be pretty big, but now it's the what's that swinging? Oh, Gates. Okay, yeah. So biggest farmer ever, and going into this type of product. Now, soy is not a health food. Soy, and look at this, infant baby formula. Have you seen the news last couple of weeks that there's a number of different baby formulas that they're giving babies that causes hemorrhagic diseases and a lot of bowel disorders? Yeah, because they're shocked to find out that some of the pesticides that they use inside of plants that destroy insects' digestive tract is actually now starting to negatively affect the human digestive tract. Go figure. Okay, so check out the whole soy story. But when you look at this, it produces xenoestrogens. Now, estrogen, and this is also, again, suppresses the thyroid. Okay, we're just looking at, because remember, if you had a herd of water buffalo and they had a thyroid issue, do they have lack of medication, or is their body responding correctly based on the environment? Am I going too fast? Okay, no. Okay, good. You got to look at this. Okay, now the thing with estrogen, okay, excess estrogens, fibroids, endometriosis, low functioning thyroid. Do we have an epidemic of this? Absolutely. Migraines, mood swing, higher risk of stroke. Now, fat produces, when you get enough fat on there, it becomes its own hormone producing organ. Okay, adrenal glands start to go down. Now, hormones in meats, okay, foaming agents, cosmetics, birth control pills, spermaticides, pesticides, all of these things can increase estrogen, which, what does that do? That decreases thyroid function. It causes tissue damage. And these are chemicals in our system that we shouldn't be in our system. Okay, progesterone is amazing. It actually decreases that estrogen effect. Now, it protects against catabolic effects of cortisol, or the breakdown effects of cortisol, instantly activates the thyroid and ovaries. And look at this, cholesterol is converted to pregnenolone and progesterone by the ovaries, adrenals, and brain. So what if somebody has high cholesterol? Is their body smart, or is their body smart? The body's smart, okay? Why? Because cholesterol is the precursor to every hormone your body makes. Glucocorticosteroid, mineralocorticosteroids, sex hormones. It's the precursor. So if you go to the standard pharmaceutically trained prescription, more drug doctor, and you have high cholesterol, are they going to give you a drug, a chemical to lower cholesterol? Okay, or are they going to ask you, what type of activities are you doing? Do you have physical, chemical, emotional stress that will cause your body to elevate your own cholesterol, knowing that 80% of your own cholesterol is not coming from your diet, it's coming from your liver that's producing it. Now, I'm just talking the future, 100 years from now. They're not going to be giving you a toxic chemical that causes a huge amount of damage to make a blood test look better. Okay, that's just stupid. Okay, the foods that increase progesterone: eggs, wild yams, shellfish, turmeric, walnuts, oregano, thyme. Oh my gosh, does that mean healthy diet? Let food be your medicine, medicine be your food. When we look at the omega-3 to 6 ratio, okay, healthy diet is 1 to 1 or 3 to 1. Okay, disease starts at 8 to 1. American diet is 20 to 1. Some of the toxic oils that they use in food production is 60 to 1. This is like guaranteeing chronic inflammatory diseases in people. Juicing versus blending. When people are in a stressed state, you got to start juicing. And this is why we recommend it. It's so important because it pre-digests it. And the juicing gives you soluble fibers that can clean the arteries. Okay, apples, organic apples, juice the core with them. They have malic acid that cleans the kidneys. Kidneys, where are those? Right under the adrenal glands. Carrots turn into beta carotene. It helps clean the lungs. Both the kidneys and lungs are literally blood filters. Cleansing herbs for the kidneys. Because remember, when you're under stress, you got thick blood. High antioxidant fruit, stinging nettle, burdock root, beets, seaweed, lemon juice, spinach. The beets are amazing at cleaning the blood, but it does turn your poo and pee red, so that'll freak you out a bit, and it can cause cramping. If it does, just reduce the amount, okay, but still take it. The antidote to adrenaline and cortisol is B3. I mean, this is incredible. When you look at it, vitamin C, vitamin E, beta carotene, selenium. Now, I'm actually recommending a vitamin to strengthen your body, not a vitamin for thyroid. So if somebody comes up and says, what do I take for an adrenal gland? I'll say, look at the physical, chemical, emotional stress. No, what can I take for my adrenal gland? Look at the physical, chemical, emotional stress. So you do not address the stress. Okay, you don't ignore the stress and take a supplement to make you just survive it. Okay? I mean, if you're burning the candle at both ends, great, go for it. If you got to do it for a short period of time, beautiful. Get the job done. Okay, but address the underlying stressors first. Chlorella and spirulina and clay. I mean, this stuff, it's like a magnet to heavy metals. I mean, we'll do EDT chelation in Mexico, but that heavy metal toxicity can negatively affect every system in the body. And that's going to change the thyroid and adrenal gland function. Bentonite clay is amazing. Okay, so what are the solutions? Okay, well, let's look at the causes first. The causes: high fructose corn syrup, toxic beverages, manufactured foods, the standard American diet, medication use, refined foods, enriched foods. Can you imagine taking a box, making it so it stays longer on the shelf, but you remove the metabolic and digestive enzymes, knowing that that could be toxic to a human being, and then you sell it as food? I know, it doesn't make sense. Unhealthy stress, environmental toxins. So how do you do this? You deal with the stress, eliminate the toxins or decrease the toxins as much as you can. Eat. What I tell people is you're going to eat like your great grandparents. Okay, why? Because they eat nothing but organic, healthy, and whole foods. Eat more organic veggies, drink more water. It's fantastic. It seems too simple, doesn't it? But address the stress and fix the problem, and your body can heal. And look at the physical, chemical, emotional stress. Now, we have to divide this up because I'm already pushing the envelope because the censors are really watching us pretty hard. That I recommended vitamins. I know. Please, oh great God, YouTube. Okay, Ministry of Truth, which is really a pile of lies. We're going to go into our new hope, okay? And I thought I'd share this first part because it's a comment from Norman Vincent Peale. And what's interesting, I'm with a group of docs called the Chiropractic Knights of the Round Table. And we send each other motivations or challenges or data. And this is what they sent me. Have a sincere desire to serve God and mankind. Do not doubt. Do not think negatively. Simply start living by faith, pray earnestly and humbly, and be in the habit of looking expectantly for the best. That is one of the most valuable things that we can do today. Okay? Turn off the input into your brain, that programming. When your neighbors and families have this, tell them to pull out. Okay? It's like they're all crashing into the FEMA camps. Okay? Pull up, pull up, pull up. Okay? We're built by God. Okay? Whatever the leftists say. Because we are. Okay, we can take the world back. Okay, does that make sense? So I'll see you next week, but we're going to get on to the part that I think that the censors may have no, hell no. They hate this shit.